Hello, this is Truth Be Told Transformation, and I'm your host, Bonnie Burkert, here to share tools for transformation to live your highest truth. And by that, I mean by really finding ways that you can feel your best and your brightest. A lot of that may come from letting go of our past. So I like to find different speakers, different illuminaries who have done so with themselves and are helping us all just be better. So today, I'd like to welcome Andrew Gell, and we're going to talk. Gell. Oh, Adam, excuse me. And we will talk about the Akashic Records, which I feel like I need to know a lot more about. So, Adam, it's a pleasure, and thank you for joining us.
Yeah, nice to be here. Thank you so much.
So, let's see. I've entitled the show Akashic Records and Healing. So I know in reading your bio, you've talked about a lot of different healing modalities, but that one in particular sounds interesting. So I know you've done shamanic healing work. You're a Reiki master. So tell me, what order did you do this work to really find some shifts in your life?
Well, I would say for myself personally, I was a physical education teacher for 30 years in a middle school. And as a teacher, I obviously had the opportunity to work with children and pass on some of my experiences, the wisdom that I accrued over the years in terms of how explaining certain ways in which they could advance themselves almost on a soul level, so to speak. Of course, as a phys ed teacher, there was the involvement of physical activity. But I found the life lessons that I learned a good tool for me to pass on to the children, as I just said. As I progressed as a teacher, I recognized the fact that I was becoming bored with not the work with the kids, but bored with myself, and I knew that I was more on a spiritual path of advancing my soul. But along that journey, I wound up having a dark night of the soul and recognizing the fact that at work I was having these panic attacks, so to speak, every time I looked at a vent in my gymnasium, corresponding with the anxiety of just going through life's ups and downs in my private life. And what happened was one of my coworkers that I spoke with told me, it seems like you have asthma. And I knew that there was a physical component to it, but I also knew that there was some sort of metaphysical component as well, which was more of some of my psychological, spiritual conflict that I was going through. As it turned out, I called up a healer that a coworker had recommended, and on the phone, without me telling the person anything, the person said to me, "You have asthma." So I wound up coming in, and each visit led to a more of an opening on a spiritual level where my intuition was getting stronger, and it gave me the opportunity to then go inward and try to open myself up along with the work that was being done to myself. And it was, Reiki and other sorts of modalities that were involved. And as it turned out, I was interested in the Reiki. I wound up taking classes and becoming a Reiki healer, and then along that way, I wound up, as one knows, when they're on this spiritual path, it's almost like a rabbit hole. One thing leads to another, and more openings take place. So what happened was, I came across the Akashic Records with a woman by the name of Gabrielle, and I had a reading done, and along with some of the things that I was experiencing at work with the panic attacks, she did a reading and found out through opening up my Akashic Records that I had a past life in Germany as a doctor in the concentration camps.
Wow.
And for me, it was eye-opening because, first off, I lived in Germany in 1987. I was married to a German woman. I spoke German fluently within 5 months, and I felt at home in this place.
Interesting.
So I furthered myself along the way with better understanding how this was possible and how a past life had connected to the present moment. And I wound up learning how to open up my own Akashic Records. And through that, I would hear information that was more specific to the story that I was being told. And then as it turned out, as I was doing my healing work for other people, I had an experience where I was doing a Reiki session via Zoom, and one of the clients said to me, "I remember you." And I said, "From where?" And he said, "The concentration camps."
Oh my gosh. That's crazy. That's
Yeah.
intense that came up, that kept coming up for you.
It came up, and what happened was I asked the person who was familiar with the Akashic Records to do a reading. And the person did a reading and came up with similar information to what I received when I opened up my Akashic Records. Namely, that I was from Berlin, that I had a Jewish father and a Christian mother. And I received something similar, that I was from Berlin. This was like 3 years ago, prior to HUD opening up the records for me and receiving this information. And then she found out the same information. You were from Berlin. And so it was very, very eye-opening.
Right, exactly. Affirming, confirming.
Yeah, absolutely. And then a year later, as I was doing an interview, I was interviewing someone from my YouTube channel. One of the people who I interviewed said, "I'm going to refer you to this person who will have some connection to you." And I said, "Okay." And so it happened, I wrote the person, and the person said, "I remember you from Auschwitz."
Oh my gosh, Adam, this is
so
incredible. This just keeps coming back around and around and around again. Because I mean, you could presumably have accessed different lives further longer ago, and yet it seems to be this more recent one that you're supposed to be dealing with. Okay, so, and I think we should maybe just do a little bit of an overview of the Akashic Records. And
Sure.
And I've had other people on the show talk about it some, but please, I'd love to get your take on it. But it's basically, there's nothing basic about it. I mean, it's quite profound. And it's information. Go ahead. I'm going to let you dive in here.
Yeah, well, it's a vibrational library in the fifth dimension. It's not an actual physical library, but it contains all the information from the beginning of time, right, from time and space. In the Old Testament, it's known as the Book of Life. And it's the energetic in the fifth dimension, where one who is able to open up a person's own records, or for someone else is able to access information from the person's, like I just said, from the beginning of time, from the soul's journey to future possibilities. And so it's basically reading the energy. It's almost like a drop, like a person throws a rock in a lake. Yes. And the vibrational reverberation of that rock going into the water is almost like the words we speak, the actions we act upon, and the things we think about will be this vibration that will be passing through time and space and get stored in the Akashic Records. So the Akashic Records is almost like a web of where the information gets stored and then eventually, useful for people who want to find out more about their lives.
Profound. Okay, so let's go back to this thought I'm having. Why this particular life? What's your takeaway on that? What have you learned?
It's very interesting. Well, first off, if I was a doctor in a past life, I'm certainly more interested in holistic means of healing, as it shows now, in terms of doing the Reiki, in terms of accessing a more holistic approach towards healing and coming from a different angle towards things. Also, for me, probably to work on better understanding myself and how to speak up in situations where sometimes people are put in places where they don't have a voice. And I think as a school teacher and as a person who was feeling maybe suppressed in a past life due to the circumstances, I have the opportunity now to voice and to use my voice and to use my mind in a different way, and also to help other people grow on a more spiritual level, and by sharing my own personal experiences and wisdom that I've learned. Whereas maybe a past life, and certainly in those war years, a person wasn't able to speak their truth or certainly challenge anything without being killed.
Oh my God, it's just so true. Wow, that's okay. So that's really great. So that's some really profound understanding. So share with us what kind of shifts came through for you, and how this has evolved. And is your documentary forgotten about this?
Well, no, my documentary film is on a path of, I think, uncovering the wounds that we have as people. Yeah. And the need for us to, retrace the steps we took or the ancestors took prior to our lives, and how those unspoken words need to be brought to the forefront to have a better understanding of why people act the way they do. And so all of my work centers around really uncovering the truth of things and trying to be able to have people, and especially myself as an example, sit with myself and work on the things and work on the emotions that I'm feeling rather than escape them or run away from them, which I did very early on in childhood. And my documentary film is actually about a grandfather who was killed in World War II. He was a Russian soldier. And I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and had a very close relationship with a grandmother who had showed me photos of somebody from World War II, which was my biological grandfather, who my father dismissed, had a new stepfather. But I uncovered this person, and through my grandmother's diaries and through her showing me photos as a 7 and 8-year-old at a kitchen table, when she passed away, I took all this information, and I wound up finding my father's biological father, family in northern Russia. Made the trip there and documented the whole journey as they were displaced people from World War II traveling from country to country.
Fantastic. Okay, so again, that is called Forgotten, and I think we're sending people to your website, and maybe we can find it on YouTube as well, correct?
Yeah, on my website I have the link, AdamGellUniversalHealing.com, so you'll see the, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. No, that's really, really great. Okay, so Adam, what about going into some other lives? So how does the Akashic record, your ability, so you had somebody do it for you, and then you yourself learned. And I mean, I don't know if you'd like to maybe share what that's like. I mean, how accessible is this?
Well, it's generally it's a specific type of prayer. Obviously, we have to be open to the energies of receiving and trusting the energy that we receive from the universe by sitting quietly. And in terms of the Akashic Records itself, it was a Mayan prayer that was passed down to a Spanish person who then passed it down to a person who spoke English who wrote a specific prayer in the translation. And in accessing the Akashic Records, a person who's doing this, opening the Akashic Records for themselves, recites a certain prayer. And once the prayer is finished, the energetic vibration reaches a high level in the crown above the crown chakra, about 12 inches above your crown chakra, in the 8th chakra. And there's almost an energetic download of information when asking questions, if seeking answers for specific questions, but more so also an energetic feeling in the body that can be felt when a person just opens up the records for themselves. So sometimes when people open up records, they don't have the ability to hear or see or receive that information at the beginning. But they may feel something, like a download. They may feel like a pressure on the third eye or on the crown of the top of the head or in the heart area. But over time, when a person accesses the information, eventually the information becomes a little bit clearer. We receive a stronger bond with the masters and teachers that are guiding us, in terms of assisting us on this journey, on this path.
Now, you also offer work in shamanic healing techniques, correct?
That's correct.
Right. So you mentioned that the information about the Akashic Records came to you via, accessing it came to you via, was it a medicine man? Was it a shaman from?
Well, no, I actually read a book. I actually contacted a person for a reading by the name of Gabrielle. This was years ago. I eventually was able to access my information for myself, and then I took classes with her, and I was certified to then do the Akashic Record readings for other people. And that's been something that's been very, very enjoyable to me, to be able to help people and assist people on their path to better understanding either past lives or the present situation or future possibilities. So I went from this path of working with the Akashic Records, and incidentally, having people doing readings, also seeing a medicine man over my shoulder, and having me felt a connection doing shamanic work to a Native American man.
Okay.
And through that connection, which I felt on my own, and was later confirmed by two people who would look over my shoulder during Zoom meetings after I finished and say the same thing, there's a medicine man over your shoulder. And I go, which shoulder? And two people spontaneously would say, right over there, over the shoulder. Yeah. So,
Wow.
so I've always communicated with this Native American during shamanic journeying, that when I've done shamanic journeying, and I received information and downloads from this person telling me specific things. And so when I'm doing shamanic work, I'm connecting to that energy as well in terms of incorporating the energies from the above as well as below. Because sometimes when we're on a spiritual path, we just go upward. We go into the higher chakras to think that we don't need to be grounded and receive energy from the earth. Where shamanic work is balancing both the feminine and the masculine energies, the heaven and the earth itself.
Excellent. Very, very helpful. And the reason I was kind of asking the question is because I wanted to see how your work and your knowledge of shamanic, practices and earth sciences, earth medicine and things like that.
Yes.
How that was helping you with what I feel is very sophisticated. I mean, working with the Akashic Records and pulling that information to then help people with a release of past life and an understanding of how that could be informing traumas in this life.
Right. Well, it's not just of course, the past lives, as I've just explained through my own experience, has an impact on my present life. But it's also our childhood traumas, right? Those that we disconnect from and we dissociate from, and we create that soul loss in this life. We want to dismiss the parts of ourselves that we're embarrassed about or ashamed about. So we cut off every aspect of that part of ourselves, whether they were good or bad, and we just don't want to know from it. And we lose the childness in ourselves. And by losing the childness in ourselves, our heart closes off.
Yeah.
And we lose the fun and passion of life. And then eventually, as we get older, we realize that I'm not singing, I'm not dancing, I'm not listening to stories anymore that create the ability for me to create my own possibilities. And so as we incorporate or we retrieve the soul parts that were fragmented or lost, then we become more whole again. And that's one of the things that I try to do in my Akashic record readings, and also in a shamanic journey and shamanic work, is seeing the trauma and trying to bring it back into the person's soul and try to create a more whole picture for the person.
Yeah, that's really, really great. I'd like to hear a little bit more about something I saw on your website. I really love that you are in touch with the concept and practices of the divine masculine. I love that you bring that in. I mean, you're a former baseball player, right? I mean, you were doing pro.
Yeah, I played college baseball, yes.
I mean, it's great. And so, I mean, again, you're an athlete, and that's a very male sport. And so tell us what your discovery has been through the years on that.
Well, I think as men, we try to push aside the softer, more sensitive aspects of ourselves in order to feel or overcompensate for the masculinity that many people think we're supposed to feel. And depending upon who our role models were growing up, we then have to base our personalities on the reflection of what we're surrounded by. So depending upon who we're around, what father we have, the personality the person has, we take on those specific traits, and we wind up taking them in, absorbing them, and using them if they're helpful, or rejecting them if we find them not helpful. So I found, growing up for myself, I found a father who was rather passive and submissive to my mother's personality, without standing up for his own rights, so to speak. And I thought that there should be a balance in that end of how he was reacting and how he was reacting to me. And so I find it so important for us men to be able to balance both ends of it, to be able to be masculine and also have some feminine qualities of, and when I say feminine qualities, it's the qualities of wisdom, it's the qualities of being able to have compassion as well as strength.
Yeah.
In terms of shamanism, which is an important concept, there's a thing known as the Pachakudi, which is the new earth, the new beginning, which started in 1993 which is the feminine condor and the masculine, no, excuse me, the masculine eagle from the north meets the feminine bird of the south, the condor, and the two of them intertwine and share their energies together over the next 2,000 years. And so that's what we're facing now, maybe more in a more extreme way, but things will probably find their place where things will be more balanced and more verbal, more communication will exist, and more maybe more of an understanding people's needs and sensitivities. And so for me, it's important to be an athlete like I was. I was a college athlete. I play ice hockey. But it's important for us to understand ourselves. And if we don't understand ourselves, if we dismiss ourselves because we feel it's not masculine enough, then we have to overcompensate and be something that we're really not.
No, that's great. And I'd like to ask, I mean, what's your take on where we're at with that, with younger generations? Do you think that men, as they come up through the world today, are, I don't know, balanced in a different way than maybe, older generations?
Well, I think so. I think the media is portraying or pushing certain agendas, maybe that are natural to some people, but maybe not natural to other people. I think people, when it feels too oppressive and it feels like it's not a natural process, then I think there's an imbalance. I think if it flows in a more it flows, I would say, if it's flowing, then it's good. But if there's a lot of resistance to things that are maybe polarized, then I think we have a problem. So I think the roles that people play, I think people should figure that out themselves, but I don't think it should be pushed in a way down anybody's throat.
Yeah, I can see that. No, it's great. Hey, let me go back to what you were saying about 1993 and the wisdom of the Mayan with the condor, and yes. I'd like to hear more about that. What was specific about that date?
Well, I can't say specifically about, but I know the year. It's the same thing as we're going from the age of Pisces to the age of Aquarius, where We'll have more inventions and more technology and more breakthroughs in life, and more of a communication as I just mentioned with the Pachacuti itself. So it is going to be it's a time which we saw a little bit where we see a changing of the God in a more extreme way. And as I said before, it'll probably find its leveling point where it'll be at a more rational and normal level, where communication will be in place, and probably more leaders will shift into being more compassionate and understanding in a more rational way. And so that's what this energy is shifting towards. Right now, it's been for the last thousands of years. It's been war. It's been fighting. It's been domination, imperialism, and so those are extremes, and nothing in between has really been able to come out of it. It's been forcing things for certain agendas. So I think communication, probably more feminine leaders and more women in power, which would probably be a good thing for communication. And so I think that's probably what's coming forward.
That's great. Yeah, I wanted to ask because I wanted to see if it was kind of lining up with for example, the harmonic convergence of 87, and I think, when was it? It was like the harmonic concordance, I think was 2002 or so, 2003. So just curious, just your knowledge of the timeline. Again, just watching the shift of the ages is something I find fascinating. And
yeah. Well, things have to destroy before they get resurrected again and rebuilt, right? People burn grass in order to grow new grass. Not that a burning needs to take place, but a catharsis needs to take place. Systems are falling apart, and people trying to hold those systems in place that no longer really work, but they work for a few people, and they work for the elites. And I think that those power struggles and those power struggles, what we're experiencing, right, is what we're all seeing in the media. We're facing it in every aspect of our life. And I think people recognize the fact that people want to have the autonomy to be able to make decisions and also to be able to voice their opinions in an honest forum without it being suppressed.
Well, Nick, fantastic. Amen and agreed. And look at us right now. I mean, you've got your own show as well, but here we are able to share a conversation like this that's hopefully illuminating to others. So I think it's great. And I think we're all kind of doing what we can, right, to wake people up. And that's what's interesting about the many offerings that you have for people. And right? And I think it's so important for us to find a balance. So many people think they have to be this or that, but there's a middle ground between everything. And I find finding the middle ground of one's personality and being able to be diverse with oneself and not be stuck in a job, for example, where once you finish working, what am I going to do? What skills do I have? Right. I think it along the line of as we work or as we progress in life, it's important for us to go deeper and uncover the parts of ourselves, the balance, like the masculine, feminine aspects of ourselves that when in balance create more harmony for ourselves and bring us to peace, bring more peace to us. Well, I was going to say, yes, also creates an attraction there as well, right? It's like if you can find that for yourselves. I mean, how often do we try to help people, those who are in pain, just like to try to work on themselves and then know that those opportunities will then fall into place, I feel.
Yeah, I think we give up much too soon. I think it's important for us to stay the course and believe in what we believe in and not be deterred by family members, by society. I think when we stick with something with patience, I think the universe rewards us with the gifts that we're supposed to experience. But we become distracted because we want to fit in, and we don't want to be the sheep of the family, so to speak. We don't want to be abandoned by a family. And when we choose that path, when we want to be like everybody else, we fit in, we feel like we're secure, but eventually we lose our soul, and we lose our authenticity, and we lose our ability to find who we really are. And so I think it's so important for us to challenge maybe our family as not fighting family, but challenge the systems that don't work, because I think people who stay in that situation have a harder time of then eventually breaking free and looking at the society itself of what things need to change or how a person needs to change and interact with society.
Mm. Amen. All right, I'm going to bring it back to Akashic Records again. So if somebody was interested in doing a reading, would they need to have something specific that they're trying to work on, understand, work through? Or could it just be hi Adam, I don't know what this is, but what can you see about me? And then do you see something, in a reading, might you see only one specific life that needed to be addressed, or do you does other information come through from multiple lives? Right.
Well, when I'm doing a reading, usually what I do is I ask clients to be prepared with questions related to the specific issues, I shouldn't say issues, the specific subjects that they're interested in hearing information about. So whether it's relationships, whether it's health, whether it's financial, whether it's just self-help or self-awareness. The questions that I usually ask basically are not ego questions, like not answers or questions that will give a yes or no response. It's more of what they need to do. How do they do it? Like in other words, how do I get that job? How do I write that book? So I'll hear the information on how to do it, and I'll pass it on to the client. Not, will I write that book? And the answer, yes or no. It becomes more of an ego satisfaction that they got a response of, oh, that's great, yes, or no, I shouldn't do that. Because energy changes from moment to moment and future possibilities change. But so in answering your question, I have people prepared for questions, but even in spite of the questions that they ask, I still see information that comes through once I open a person's Akashic Records. So in other words, once I use the person's name to open up the Akashic Records, the information or a download of information will come through of a present conflict or a present situation, or it may be a past situation, but I'll then share it with my client what I'm seeing. And they see it for the most part, and if they don't see it at the beginning, they'll say, maybe you told me this at the beginning, now I know what you mean.
Interesting.
Sometimes we blocked a little bit because we're nervous receiving information. And so at first, sometimes it doesn't, a person will be a little bit less open. But once the person is open, more information flows through. And as you also asked about past lives, usually the present life is resonates with some aspect of a past life. So whether it's the life before or the life before that, I'm reading whatever information I'm getting, and it's usually in line with what the person's experiencing in this present life right now. So if a person is feeling victimized, there was probably, and I usually see the victimization from a past life, where I'll describe where the scene is or what I'm seeing. And sometimes people say, oh, you know what, I'll see a person who was begging for money in Egypt. And then, not that the person is begging for money, but the person's victimization in his present life. And then the person says, you know, I have everything from Egypt in my room. I have blankets with Egypt. I have statues of Egypt. So there's a correlation. And it's important for us to know, if we believe in reincarnation, that we know our soul is just shifting from one body to the next, experiencing new lessons and past memories.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, the times I've done past life regression work along the way, and how would that differ from accessing the Akashic Records?
In terms of the Akashic, in terms of me doing the reading and a person having a transgression, the person experiencing the transgression would be in the midst of the past life. And the Akashic Records, I as the reader would be more embedded in the past life, doing the reading and passing on information from what I'm seeing or hearing.
Right.
Or
okay.
visualizing. So that's a different. I think the past life regression would be a little bit more intense in terms of a person living the life, passing the information on. So in essence, what I'm doing right now, and actually in the coming months or in the year to come, I'll be doing that as well. So what I'll do is I'll be having a Akashic record reading, and if the person wants to have a transgression in the process of the Akashic records, that will be very helpful, because I'll be involved in understanding where they're at, rather than just going on into a past life and themselves reliving an experience. So together, it would be both people experiencing it.
Yes. Okay. That's great. I appreciate the distinction between the two. And I remember in early days, before I really had much experience with really anything, but I had a past life regression. So I didn't even know if I was, quote unquote, doing it correctly, if you know what I mean.
Right,
I was like,
course.
am I listening? And I think initially nothing, the first life I was supposed to go back to, nothing happened. But then I did see another life, and it involved a man that I saw him, somebody I was dating current day, I saw as my father, and in a past life, and he was very mean to me. And I felt that in my current situation, him being so nice was really making up for that, for how mean he had been. And it helped me kind of reconcile why I was with this person, and made it a little easier when I left, because I didn't really want to be there. And so it's almost like I facilitated his learning and working through something, whether he knew it or not, but I saw it. And so it was a real aha and especially for somebody that really didn't know much about anything. I mean, so it was early days. So it's great. And thank you, because I've always heard, the term Akashic Records is like, it's very, very fascinating, and it kind of, curious, like when we started to know about this, is this something that's been around since the Middle Ages, and wise people through the ages were knowing about it?
Yeah, from my concept, it's the book of life. The book of life is our book of life from biblical times. The exact time frame of that I couldn't say, but I know in terms of referencing it a little bit to the present day is Edgar Cayce, who was the sleeping psychic who accessed the Akashic records for people.
Oh, okay.
So. Yeah, and that was an interesting concept. Receiving information and downloads, and just passing information that's floating through once a person's Akashic records are open. When your CD is open, so to speak, and then it's read.
Isn't that great? Well, fantastic. And what an incredible service you're providing to the world. So, Adam, talk to us. I mean, where do you feel in our final moments, how do you feel, where do you feel we're at? I mean, what's our trajectory? We just, we've come through this pandemic to whatever extent, and I don't know, leave us with some words of just inspiration and who you are and what your wishes are for us.
Well, I think on an individual basis, I can speak for myself, and then that could maybe project out to the world. I think that we need to have self-love for ourselves. We need to generate self-love. I think in times of crisis that we've gone through, we've experienced a little bit of a loss within ourselves. And in another aspect, it's actually helped us to go within and grow. Excuse me. So I think it's important for us to generate self-love and be able to sit with ourselves during these times, and going forward to not give up and lose hope or faith in what we believe in. That, our story is a story that we've lived, and it's interchangeable. We can change the role we play in our story, and we have the capacity to be what we like. As long as we project the imagery of what we want with positivity into the future with our words and actions, I think we all have the capacity to be and to reach for the stars.
I love that. Thank you so much. This has been very, very enlightening, and I really appreciate just all the variety of offerings that you have for us. You've done incredible studies, and I love the melding of them all. Adam, I think it's really a beautiful way of looking at a reverence for the ancient practices of shamanism, and yet sort of this transcendent information that you can bring to help us understand how some of our past lives, or even present, but that information to shift further and transform.
Yeah.
All right. And tell us your website one more time, please.
Yes, it's Adam Gell, universalhealing.com.
All right. That's great. Well, we really appreciate you joining us, and we look forward to the next time for sure.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank
namaste.
You so much,
Thank you.
Okay.
So this has been a really interesting conversation, everybody, and we appreciate you listening. And please know that every week there is a new episode of Truth Be Told Transformation, as well as Tony Sweet, the one and only, every Friday live at 3 p.m. Pacific with the original Truth Be Told, as well as Robert Hensley with the Minuteman Report live on Mondays. Please know that you need to be in Santa Clarita, California, which is really very, very close to us here in Burbank, on April 1st, March 31st, and April 1st for the first ever Parabhad Festival. So the Truth Be Told team is bringing together not only our interest in ufology, but all kinds of paranormal subjects ranging from
Hi, I'm Linda Moulton Howe.
A lot of different things we're talking about, and we will be honoring the mighty Linda Moulton Howe as well. So it's going to be a fantastic weekend. We hope that you'll join us here in Southern California. And for more information, that would be parapodfestival.com. Tony Sweet in the studio nodding at me. Again, I'm Bonnie, and I really appreciate you being here. We're just trying to shine the light. So thanks for joining us, sharing, and we'll see you the next time.